Is the head of the Wagner group threatening to take his toys and go home, even as Russia is on the cusp of seizing Bakhmut? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's April 30th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. As always, guys, you guys know that YouTube absolutely hates my content. I regularly get videos demonetized. In fact, the best way to support what I do is become a member at combatvetnews.com. Maybe you're watching this on Combat Vet News because I put all my YouTube videos on here for free. I have news articles of the stories that I can't get to in my daily updates. But if you want to become a member, it works just like Patreon. Any one of these tiers gets you access to the members only content, all the old Patreon videos, plus every week, I do a look at all the viral combat footage that YouTube definitely won't let me show you. And this is some crazy trench warfare that we took a look at on Friday. It's like something out of World War I. But it really lets us see how the Ukrainians are using trench clearing tactics, taking that World War I era strategy into the 21st century using technology. Pretty cool stuff and a great way to support what I do. Okay, let's take a look first at the combat map. As you guys can see, Ukraine controls very little of Bakhmut now. In fact, I'd say they're probably down to around their last maybe 20 or 25 city blocks. You can see Russian forces advancing quite a bit here in this city center and through this remaining park. Not much remains of really Ukrainian control of the city. Again, I think this is part of a controlled withdrawal effort to pin Russian forces in place as they push into Bakhmut. And it's interesting because we are pretty certain that this is the handiwork of the Wagner group. And the reason is because, well, Wagner says so. And generally, Prigozhin, he seems to have pivoted to this strategy of speaking uncomfortable truths to the Russian public. This is probably part of an effort to endear himself to them, be seen as a tell it like it is sort of maverick type figure in the Russian political space. And he is threatening to withdraw his forces from Bakhmut if Russian military command fails to provide sufficient ammunition to his mercenaries. Of course, with a Kremlin-affiliated mill blogger interview, again, I just want to point out yet again the bizarre and fascinating role that the social media influencer, aka mill blogger in this case, is playing in this conflict. It's hard to overstate how influential these figures have become in terms of mediating the conversation between the military and the public. This is a fascinating war, and again, if maybe if I wasn't so committed to my journalistic integrity, I could try to similarly leverage policy making. But I think mill bloggers, and even I acknowledge on this channel, I don't have access to classified information. I haven't even viewed the leaks personally. I've only had to read reports about what's in them that are publicly available because I am former military. I signed an NDA about my handling of classified material that doesn't really expire. And the problem is, though, so when mill bloggers try to make policy, it often fails to account for the information that they don't have access to. Still, their influence can't be denied in this war. And the Prigozhin has said Wagner mercenaries will continue to fight in Bakhmut, but will withdraw in an organized manner if the situation does not immediately improve. He said Wagner needs about 80,000 shells a day. Right, which apparently was actually how much it was allocated, and now it only gets about 800 of the 4,000 shells a day it's currently requesting. Yes, I'm sure they all wish they could throw 800,000 shells at their problem, but I'm pretty sure that would like burn out an entire artillery battery's worth of artillery pieces in like a day. It's not realistic. But what is interesting is he's claiming that this was all along his plan, that Wagner's plan was to grind the Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut to deprive them of their initiative on the battlefield, which is weird because they have between 9 and 13 brigades that are like ready to fight. So that effort doesn't seem to have paid off. But again, Prigozhin also, interestingly, is pushing the Kremlin to pivot to defensive operations. Prigozhin claimed the Ukrainian counteroffensive could take place before May 15th, that the Russian military is not rushing to prepare to repel those attacks. The threat to withdraw from Bakhmut may also indicate Prigozhin feels the Russian positions at Bakhmut's rear are vulnerable to counterattacks. Fascinating. Wonder if he got that from my channel or if just great minds are out here thinking alike. As I've talked about in other videos, it's actually not the worst idea to launch the counteroffensive directly into Bakhmut, or not into Bakhmut, but perhaps encircling around Bakhmut. That way, the freshest Ukrainian troops with their best state, best resupplied, best trained, best equipped, they are engaging the best Russian forces. And once they can break the VDV and top-tier Wagner forces in Bakhmut, then the remainder of the rear is easy pickings, right? And you can see the territory actually is not that unfavorable. It's not that urbanized. So if they could break Bakhmut, they could potentially push right through to the border of Russia. Again, it's not the book answer to where should Ukraine launch its counteroffensive is here. It just is. But the problem, war, unlike a math problem, doesn't have one answer. And the best answer is going to change based on what your opponent does. And I think that Russia anticipates Kherson or Zaporizhzhia to be the target of Ukrainian offensive efforts. So by running a little deception, you can really get some big returns. But it's tough to say. Again, Ukraine out here very publicly acknowledging it controls the supply route into Bakhmut, which is kind of a propaganda way of saying that we have lost a lot of the actual Bakhmut itself, which again, in the grand scheme of things, not that alarming if it is preparatory. The defensive effort in Bakhmut is a shaping operation for the counteroffensive, which it very well could and should be. Russian forces conducting 58 attacks across the front lines. You can see concentrated in Bakhmut and Avdiivka. As we've talked about, I think you're going to see a broadening generally of Russian offensive efforts across the front line. Not necessarily more or more intense, but you will see attacks spread further in order to be spoiling attacks, recon by fire, and to fix Ukrainian forces in their positions so that they can't reposition to support a counteroffensive effort. Anyway, guys, that is pretty much all I had for you. Thank you so much. As always, thanks to the members of combatvetnews.com. You guys are the ones who make this whole thing possible. I really appreciate you. Thanks to our lieutenant tier members. And of course, our Colonel tier members. You guys are the ones who really, I can't thank you enough for your support. See you guys in the next one.